I was injured 6.5 years ago.
On a Monday morning, March 15th, 2010, he had gone to work just like any other normal day. And I had taken the kids to school and went to the gym, and a friend ran into the gym and said, something's wrong, Brian's been hurt.
I was the gym supervisor out in the warehouse, and I was in charge of loading the trucks for new construction with house trim and windows and doors. And we used to keep the vinyl windows on these rolling carts, and there was always two of us working. One of us would have to act like a bookend and hold the windows so the other one could pull the ones out of the middle that we needed. That day I was a bookend, and all of a sudden the cart started moving, and I wasn't able to get out of the way, and my knees buckled, and it threw me back, and I hit the cart behind me, which snapped my neck forward, actually dislocating my C3 vertebrae over the C4, ultimately pinching my spinal cord.
He had been rushed to Richland Hospital downtown and was in the trauma intensive care unit. He stayed there for 8 days. He was on a ventilator. I learned, I believe it was probably the second day, that he was paralyzed. He was life flighted or air flighted to a hospital in Atlanta the following Tuesday, a week later, and we spent 5 months in a rehab facility there called Shepherd Center, which is a specialty hospital for brain and spinal cord injury patients. The kids weren't allowed to come along, so we had to leave the kids behind with some friends so they could continue in school. We spent 5 months being educated and being trained on how to manage his care, both from a physical, medical standpoint, but also emotionally and psychologically. They have a great program there that kind of prepares you to go home. And so we came back home in August of 2010. We lived in an accessible apartment. That was a really big time of adjustment. We joke because I don't know that I cooked more than 5 times in like a year and a half. We kept Chick-fil-A in business. We ate a lot of cereal, and we just kind of made do. Survived, I guess. It was definitely the most stressful time of our lives.
The doctors told me that I would be vent dependent for the rest of my life, that I might get minimal movement in my arms, and that I would never walk again. But 6 months after I got hurt, I was able to take my first breath off the ventilator. And then 6 months later, I was off the vent during the day. 2.5 years ago, I was actually able to take my trach out.
Once his health stabilized, we were able to kind of get back to what was going to be our new normal life.
You know, an accident like this, it's catastrophic, and you know, the first couple of years, you know, my family and I were kind of in crisis and survival mode, just trying to figure out how all this works.
That alone can destroy a family, a marriage, an individual's self-worth. I had to begin letting him manage his own care and be more vocal and more assertive about what his needs were. It wasn't smooth. Brian's not naturally an assertive person, and I definitely am. So that was one of the biggest turning points, really. And it freed us both up to be individuals again, which was much healthier for our marriage. When Brian decided he wanted to go back to work, it came after a lot of discussion about how he was spending his time during the day here at home. Having Brian here 24 hours a day threw another monkey wrench in just the family dynamic. And so we were really wrestling with, okay, you can't sit here and play video games, watch TV, surf the web all the time. You've got to have something, a goal or something to work towards.
And there's got to be more than this, and that's when I started getting on the internet and started searching the job listing websites and trying to figure out, okay, what kind of job could I actually do?
Brian came in to our office as a referral from the Spinal Cord Injury Association. He was very unsure about what he could do, and I had to kind of help him along the way for him to see that nothing was out of his reach.
And I was just to the point where I was so discouraged that I told her I didn't think she would be able to help me.
He had already been putting in applications, and he would show up for interviews, and then when he showed up, that's when he said you could see the look on their face that he wasn't going to be hired.
That's all I was wanting, is for somebody to give me a chance to prove that I can still be part of something. I can still contribute. She just reassured me. She said, Brian, we're gonna find you something.
I might have scared him a little bit because I was so enthusiastic about what he could do, because I honestly believe that with the right supports, anyone can do anything.
She really made me realize that my chair can't be my excuse. She didn't look at me as if I couldn't do anything.
And so we took a different approach when we started to look for jobs for Brian. The business development specialist, Steve Marshall, met with Brian, and they developed a strategy so he could use his connectors, the people he already knew, to kind of get his name out there. One of the things that the employer, Charlie, told us was he kept hearing about this guy, Brian Denny, and it's because we used our connectors, he used his connectors, and because Mr. Weston was plugged into his community.
My first introduction to Brian was through a friend of mine who was in the HVAC, heating air conditioning business, Joe Burns. And Joe Burns was one of Brian's best friends. They were very close. And Joe would say, you really ought to take a look at this guy. Based on what he told me, I was scared to death. And I didn't think there was any way that it would happen. And then one night at a Home Builders Association meeting, I met Reggie Murphy.
Charlie and I just happened to be standing around the grazing table of snacks and foods. And he asked what I did, and I explained to him that I worked for SC Works and that we were a consortium of partners that helped work with employers and tried to fill employment needs. And Charlie related the story to me about a person who had been referred to him. And I said, is it Brian Denny? And
he says, I know Brian Denny. I know all about Brian. He said, he's an amazing person, and if you don't hire him, you should at least meet with him and talk with him. My greatest fear was that it wouldn't work out, and how would I tell somebody that I couldn't use them, that they were not able to do what I needed.
There are solutions for all of those issues. And so I told Charlie, I said, well, why don't I go ahead and get you in touch with my contacts over at Voc Rehab.
Reggie called me and said Charlie has an opportunity for a sales position, and he was looking at Brian to come in and start establishing new accounts, but also re-engage existing customers.
I still had some skepticisms. How would he deal with the job? How would he answer a phone? How would he work with his computer?
He wanted this to be a success. He did not want Brian to be set up for failure.
You know, everybody assured me if it didn't work out, we all would be able to live with that one way or another.
We were able to give him answers from many different angles about what VR can provide. And you could see the wheels turning in Charlie's head. Even though Mr. Denny was not going to be involved in the manufacturing process, he was going to need to be out on the floor from time to time interfacing with the people out there. And we were looking at the facility as if we were in a wheelchair, trying to anticipate what problems there could potentially be. And there were very few things that we had to be concerned with.
One of the things that we wanted to have Brian take advantage of is our skilled workforce apprenticeship training.
We assist the business to help offset their initial hiring and training costs, to really give them an opportunity during a 3-month period to see if the client is going to be a good fit.
Folk Rehab came in and pretty much got me decked out with everything I needed to be successful.
You know, the client is the driver of their case. I came on board and I really wanted to just go very high tech. You know, let's do head trackers, voice recognition. And what he talked to me about was he was comfortable using an iPad at home as a keyboard and mouse and showed me how that system worked. So we were able to replicate what he was comfortable with.
He actually made me a laptop easel that was adjustable, and he made me a mouse stick holder because I use a conductive mouse stick to operate my equipment. And he got me a hands-free headset so that I could answer the phone, and the adjustable height desk that I can wheel right under.
He needed a second monitor to do some additional work. He was doing some marketing research, creating some marketing materials. He's using an iPad which has Siri for the voice recognition, voice activation. He's using an app on the iPad which has a companion app on the PC, and it links over a wireless network to move the mouse and use it as a keyboard. It's a very simple solution to what could be a very complex problem. About 95% of the equipment we provided for Brian was off the shelf. The 5% of things that weren't off the shelf were things that we were able to make here at Rehabilitation Technology.
The greatest part about the SWAT program is, I think on both my side and the employer side, is, you know, just giving us a chance to feel each other out. You know, do I feel like this is where I'm going to be able to contribute and be able to use my skills to be a part of the company? And at the same time with Charlie, it's kind of a little bit of breathing room where it gives him a chance to see what I can do. And
I took the chance, and Brian took the chance in me, and we hit it off well from the beginning. You know, all that stuff about him having a disability or anything went away.
Everything moved forward and ultimately came on full-time with Charlie.
Brian's been here almost 2 years now, and he's got a home here.
When I initially started, I was going to be doing some manufacturing sales. Once I got more comfortable, then I started answering the phones and taking more of the sales calls.
Because he was so great at the computer, he began working with a software called Zoho.
I made Brian czar of Zoho.
Then that kind of morphed into the marketing aspect to set up some new business and get some more customers going.
He closed out a very nice export sale this month, probably about $68,000 sale. He is terribly excited about it, as I am also terribly excited.
They both make each other better and therefore the company's better. They really have a very positive relationship that allows both of them to be as successful as they can possibly be.
He loves what he does. If he comes to my office and I have a question about a quote or a sale I'm working on, next thing I know, I'm getting a fencing lesson, and I'll look at him and say, man, okay, that was a lot. And he said, well, they don't call me Chain Link Charlie for nothing.
I have to give him a hard time every now and then to make sure that he doesn't get too much in his head. Actually, he makes all of us realize that we can do things that we didn't think we could do. Working with Brian and VR has opened up a great door of opportunity for a labor force that I need. I have right now 4 employees in our dog kennel fabrication shop who came through the VR training programs here locally. I wish that more small business owners and companies would take a look at people like Brian, give them a chance. They will be rewarded.
The key to this success story is the fact we had strong communication from day one. Both parties listened to each other to make sure that we truly understood what each other's needs were.
I guess it was the 3-way street. Vocational Rehabilitation, Brian, Denny, and Guardian.
When I got the job, I felt great. I felt like I'm actually being able to contribute to society and to, to have invested interest and be part of his company and seeing it succeed. And the biggest part for me is just being a provider for my family again. Knowing that my kids can say, hey, my daddy's in a wheelchair, but he's out working.
He just keeps proving to me that can't is a dirty word. He's frustratingly inspiring to live with. Combined with the fact that he's gorgeous, and I can't stand it. He's annoyingly awesome.
The only person that's stopping you is yourself. I'm proud to be a part of VR and knowing that I'm not out there alone, because that's a scary thing for somebody with a disability to not have a support system. Ultimately, it's there not just for the client, but for the employer. That they don't have to go at it by themselves. And that it's just a fantastic program. I've been happy to have been a part of it.